Hi, I'm David Saville, creator of Becoming Superhuman. I'm a life coach, but rather than just asking questions, I challenge my clients in a way that creates radical transformation in a single session. I'm currently launching my signature program, Becoming Superhuman, as a range of immersive events, online courses, and live adventures to help you handle anything, create anything, and choose to be powerful. I want to raise global standards by training leaders to do meaningful work and to do what's right. Leaders of companies, leaders of countries, rippling throughout the world, creating a future generation of children who embrace risk, naturally help others, and seek to do meaningful work in their lives, and seek to live lives that are meaningful. Welcome to Becoming Superhuman, and thank you very much for the likes there. I do love the likes. Welcome Sarah, welcome Kristen, and for any of you who's coming, welcome to you too. Becoming superhuman. It's important. This is not some just rhetoric, and this is not some branding thing that I came up with. It's a natural evolution that my life has come from 5.5 years of working damn hard and deciding and finding out what's possible, not just for me, but for the people I work with. Becoming superhuman is possible for all of us. We just don't know what that is. And that's what I'm going to be talking about today as well. You're going to be talking about some of the lies in personal development and coaching. It's the lie of, you can do anything you want and you can be anything you want. It's well-meaning and it can often come from a good place, but it's actually just rubbish, that you can do anything you want and you can be anything you want, because it's just not true. There are limitations to everything. And to deny ourselves the reality of that can actually be detrimental. And that's what I see. I see so many people looking at this in that way and feeling very disheartened and very disappointed. And it's an obstacle to truly being able to find out what's possible for them. Welcome Simon, welcome Magnus, hello. Trupti, hey, good to see you again. Yeah, so, and for those of you watching, by the way, now on the replay, if you are interested in becoming the superhuman version of yourself, and some on this call already have, message me to do that. If you feel so inspired, message me and tell me that. It's a scary thing, to make the claim to go, I want to become superhuman, because once you share it with me, by the way, it means that my attention becomes drawn to you and makes me want to help you do just that. So I understand the hesitation for some of you that maybe not sure. But I encourage you to do that. If you feel a pull within, like this is for me, then message me and let me know that. And I can let you know how, in a few days actually, we could be talking about how you could become the superhuman version of yourself. So back to the lies of personal development, these misunderstandings. So when they say to children, actually, you can be anything you want, you can do anything you want. If it comes from a parent, hopefully it's coming from a really good place. It's like, I want my child to know that they can do anything and be anything. And that's wonderful. The problem lies in the fact that it isn't true. The reality is, there are many limitations to creating things. There really are. Physical limitations, right? The reality is, if you are under 4 foot, it's unlikely you're going to be able to win at the high jump. It's not impossible, of course. We don't know the possibilities, but it's unlikely. So to say to that child who is now fully grown and is 4 foot tall and says, right, you are going to do this. Now, that could cause that child to spend their life dedicated to something that they're failing at, knowing inside that they're never going to achieve it. But because they're being directed in this way and they've been lied to for so long, they keep going for it. It can cause a real problem within their lives. Now, of course, there is a possibility that someone who is 4 foot tall could do the biggest high jump in the world. It is possible. So it's not about removing the possibility or the will to try. That's not what we're talking about. But it's be real about what our limitations are. The consequences of this, by the way, the negative consequences, which I want to begin with and then move into what to do with it. So the negative consequences are looking at the X Factor in the early stages. I don't know if they still do it because I don't watch it at the moment, but they used to do this thing in the early stages where you'd have people come up there, sing their hearts out, and they're terrible. And the audience would just be laughing at them. And people are laughing at them at home, which, personally, I don't think is a very good thing. Because some of them go up there and sure, they're willing to have a laugh. But some of them, you can tell, truly believe it. They are shocked that they haven't got through. They are really surprised that their voice is terrible. No, but it doesn't, some of these, you've probably seen them, right? It's like, you're like, how have you got to be an adult and to think you can sing in tune. How have you done that? And it's happened through these lies that they've taken in, and then so everything, they must have heard themselves back, but somehow it's been distorted in such a way that they can't hear how bad it is, how out of tune it is. I remember seeing like groups that have come on there who can't sing in harmony, and it's like, how would you not know that? They've done gigs together and stuff too, right? It's like, how would you not know? And that's because of this lie. Thank you for the lies and the laughs, right? Thank you. Exactly, right? It's a self-deception on an incredible way. And it does no service to anyone to be so self-deceived. And there's no need for... I was thinking about this as well, like Stephen Hawking. So Stephen Hawking, right, he was one of the greatest minds that potentially has ever lived and may ever live, right? What he was able to do with his physical limitations was insane. I mean, he wrote some of the most meaningful literature on physics by blinking into a screen that captured letter by letter his thoughts. Can you imagine the mind of the man to be able to think in that way initially, and then to be able to translate that in what must have been at first, at least, excruciating. So frustrating to not be able to get his thoughts articulated in that way. I'm assuming, of course, he may not have been in any way frustrated by it, but I imagine at first he would be, especially since he used to be more physically able, right? So I imagine there was an evolution time where he had to accept his new way of communicating. But anyway, regardless of what was going on with regards to that, he was expressing himself in an incredible way. Now, if you'd have said to Stephen Hawking, you can be the fastest man alive, you can run 100 meters in under 10 seconds, after he'd had this illness and was confined to a wheelchair, it would be stupid, wouldn't it? Now, it's not to say there's not certain things he'd be able to do physically. Maybe he was limited in his physicality and didn't challenge himself enough. I don't know about that. But it would be a dumb dream for him when he's physically so incapable to go, that's your dream. It would just go, I mean, his entire soul is probably going to go, look, I can barely blink to tap this one letter out. To even try that could be so soul-crushing and disheartening, right? There were physical limitations to his being that meant there were certain things he could do incredibly well, certain things he couldn't. So it's what it is. It's about aligning with what our true limitations are, and then expanding and smashing through everything beyond all that. Because the truth is, we don't know what we're capable of. Most of us aren't testing ourselves enough to know where our limits are. We don't really know how far we can go physically, how much endurance we can create, how high we can jump, how fast we can run, or any of these things. Most of us are not really pushing ourselves to those limits. The same with when it comes to emotional challenge as well. Most of us are not on a daily basis seeking to be the most vulnerable we could possibly be, to say everything that is of meaning to us in every conversation. Most of us are not continually challenging ourselves like that. I mean, even me, I'm probably not doing it 24/7. I do it a lot. I'll be honest with you, it is daily. But there will be moments that I'm missing out on. So the truth is that there are so many things that we don't know where our limits are. So it's not about getting rid of the concept of going for anything you want. That's very different. It's being aware that there may be limits to what you're capable of, but choosing the goals that feel inspiring to you. It doesn't matter what the limits are, really, because if it's inspiring and by going for it, you can feel inspired and drawn to it, then it doesn't matter what the limit is anyway, because your life is made better. You become more by going for that, by going for that dream. I would recommend strongly to go for huge goals. Things that seem insane, things that seem like you could never do them, if you're inspired by them. Because who you become by going for those goals is someone completely different. You have to become so much more to achieve these incredible goals that we're all capable of. And this is why I keep talking about becoming the superhuman version of yourself, because we barely tapped into a fraction of what's possible. I was talking to a friend actually a couple of weeks ago who says she thinks she's probably 90% of her, bringing 90% of herself to her work and her life. And I'm like, it's probably 5%. Obviously my friends I can be very direct with, which is nice. But actually with everyone I can be quite direct with, which is nice. If they don't like it, that's not really up to me. It's important to say what I feel is meaningful to me and for that person, of service to that person. So for her, I was like, it's 5% actually. Obviously knowing her quite well, because I know how extraordinary she is, and I've seen what her 90% looks like, and most of the time she's not being that. So it's like, well, actually most of the time it's this. And then of course she reflected on that, because she's cool and she wanted to think deeper, and she was like, and she could see it, and she started to look at the different areas of her life that she is holding back in that way. And so, what her true limitations are, she has no idea. We just live through the perceived limitations, and so it's the dance really between not deceiving ourselves by saying we can truly do anything we want, but it is going for anything we want, whilst being aware that those limitations will happen. So I'm seeing this is making sense to you. So this is very cool. What about you? Are there any lies, actually? It's good to get the lies out there. The lies that you've been told that you found not to be true. What are they? Be great to share those here as well. What are some of them? Like one of the great ones is that I really like to dispel is you're good enough. You're good enough as you are. That would have done nothing for me at all. The entire reason that I'm standing here right now is because I had to accept that I wasn't good enough, that I'd failed badly with my father, and not just my father actually, in many, many areas of my life. But my father was the catalyst, when he died, it was the catalyst. If someone had said to me, you're good enough, and I'd have accepted that, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have lived the life that I had. I probably would have repeated the same mistakes with him, with everyone else too. I wouldn't have learned deeply. So that's another lie, right? It's you are good enough as you are. No, we're not actually, and it's not. This is the difference with that one. As a human being, sure, we're all good enough, right? We exist. There's not even a reason to talk about that stuff. The truth is, though, there are many things we're not good enough at. Many, many things. And so take it away from the identity level stuff and just go, what aren't you good enough at? And then you get to use that to become better, to become more, to create a more expansive life, to be able to push through these limitations. So what are some of the other lies? Come on, post them either now or on the replay. What are some of the lies that you've been told that you found out to be untrue? Or even some of the ones that you've heard that you think are true, but actually in practice, you've not found them to be very useful. Because there are useful truths and there are truths, I find. So as an example of this was only years ago, finding out when I started all this about 10 years ago, was that the subconscious mind is the most powerful part of us. So the conscious mind is this tiny little thing, but the unconscious, which controls our autonomic nervous system, our physicality, breathing, all that kind of stuff, plus operates our subconscious thought processes, our emotions, and so that was it. So it was the most of us is run by this unconscious power, and only a tiny part is conscious. Now, although there is truth to that, a lot of truth to that, actually me knowing that caused a lot of problems for me. It fed into my disempowerment, thinking, well, there's nothing I can do then against this big monster, of the unconscious. You have metaphors like the unconscious is the ocean, and the conscious mind is just like you're a ship on the ocean. Well, guess what happens to ships on the ocean? They get pummeled and they sink. I mean, for me, that was a horrendous truth to be exposed to. Later on, over years of working in development in different areas, the NLP, hypnosis, and many other things actually that I trained in and studied over the years, then it came to, no, it's back to front. Sure, that is true, but the conscious is where everything is. The I choose, the empowerment, the ownership, it all comes from the conscious decisions. That actually is the most powerful part. Sure, there's the unconscious is the majority of who we are as beings, but our conscious will, our decisions that we get to make. Now, the funny thing is, actually, I won't go too much into that. I'm going to go too much into the psychological, so I'll leave that to one side right now. But for me, it was like, well, the real truth is probably that the majority that happens to us and the majority of our decisions come from an unconscious place. However, the useful truth was, conscious is where everything is. I choose. And once I did that, and that was during the time after my father died, the I choose part, That's what's changed everything for me. So there's a difference between a technical truth of how we function as human beings and the truth that changed everything, which was a functional truth. So yeah, so either now or on the replay, what are some truths that you've heard? Why do I do that? I don't like doing that. And yet I've done that. And if I picked that up from somewhere, the whole, inverted commas thing, pretend I didn't do that, erase that. There's nothing superhuman about inverted commas, quotes in the air. Anyway, so yeah, post that here. Any questions or any misconceptions that you've heard, post them. Let's out them. Either now or out them when I come back to the replay later. I think it's important actually. So once we stop deceiving ourselves, then we get to create the extraordinary. That's the ability we all have, by the way. We have the ability to live extraordinary lives because we are extraordinary. And that is what's available to us. But it's important not to have the stuff that gets in the way of that. These lies, this you can be anything you want is an example of that. Now, for those of you who want to become the superhuman version of yourself, and you're ready to work hard, because that's the truth of it. There'll be hard work to be done, but it'll be exciting. You'll be transforming who you are, who you're being, getting rid of the crap that's in the way, but being able to handle anything, create anything, and choose to be powerful in any moment. If that's you, if you want that, send me a message. I'm actually putting together, as well as my intense 4-month insane, amazing program that I've put together, I'm also doing something at the beginning of the year actually, which is focused on the choose to be powerful aspect. Plus there's a range of other things coming in. So if you're inspired to do anything like that, to become the superhuman version of yourself in 2019, send me that message. Now, when it comes to creating the extraordinary, what I've found really works well is to have impossible goals. So to do things that it feels like it's beyond you. You feel like there's no way that can happen. But there's a pull there. There's something there that goes, I don't think I can do that, but I'm excited by the idea of it. It's a beautiful blend. And what can happen if you're not used to thinking in this way is that you limited your dreams and your goals. You've had limits there. So a lot of people find this very hard. In fact, even clients I've been working with for a while, I have to keep challenging them to dream bigger because you can only really perceive to the limits of what you think is possible. So we have these like invisible walls. So tends to be based on our previous experience, on what we've done so far, plus a little bit extra. So I mean, just making up a figure really, like 20% more than we think we can do. People tend to dream in that way. Something that seems like it might be 2 or 3 years away is kind of the bracket that people seem to look for. So what I tend to do with people is I get them to imagine what they want in 2 or 3 years, and then we make it happen in a few months. That's kind of the process that I like to go through. And obviously by doing that, they're compounding the experience of creating more than they thought possible. And then they are being able to dream bigger and bigger, and it's an ever expanding way. So I recommend that you keep challenging yourself to dream big enough. Now there is the great adage, which is, if you aim for the sun, you hit the moon. That's a cliche, right? People see it as a cliche, and people dismiss these cliches because unfortunately it goes around as a meme on Facebook or social media somewhere. And people like it and they go, yay! And there's a lot of like self-congratulation, but there's no work being done. And there's no depth of understanding either about what that means. And I like to take that idea and make it real. And the truth is, unless your goals are small, right? If you're aiming very small, so something that is maybe a step ahead from where you are, that if something is a step away, you know it's within your realms. Like as an example, if you're in a company and the next say you're a manager and there's a manager's position just above you, right? There is a progress to getting that. So there's work you can be done, there's exams you can take, there's experience to be had. That means if you do all of that, you're likely to get to the next step, right? So that is a manageable goal, which is likely. So unless you've got a goal like that, which by the way, I would recommend, they're okay, but I'd recommend doing more. So any goal that is big, you're unlikely to hit it because it's bigger than you, right? You're unlikely to actually hit the exact target you aim for. And that's why going far beyond that is better, because who you need to be, as an example, like in the company, if you need to go, say 5 steps ahead, let's say you want to go for the CEO position from where you are, and you were to have that be your dream, say in 2 years from now, you want to go from middle management to CEO, that's what you want to do. You have to do different work, right? You have to work in a very different way. You have to do very different types of training to be that person. And so it requires more of you on a day-to-day basis. Josie, one of my wonderful clients from South Africa has just said, the Vervet Forest is happening. This is cool, actually. So Josie and I began working together about just 3 years ago. Now, the Vervet Foundation at the time was having challenging times. You know, they were having challenging times. But in the time when it was barely being able, just trying to get by each month, we created a goal together. Her goal, and I got to support her in seeing how it's possible, right? And that was to not just sustain the foundation, but to create an actual whole forest, to buy a huge forest so you could release these monkeys into, create an entire ecosystem. So at a time when the foundation was like bleak, really, from what the possible for the future, she created this incredible goal, insane goal. And now, and what she did during that, because what I saw in her, it inspired her so much that the conversation she was having about the future far beyond where she was inspired everyone around her. It meant she had to change the structures of how it worked, right? She had to get employ more staff, get more volunteers, had to recruit a lot more people into her dream to make it possible. And what that did was it not only sustained the foundation, so it solved the problems they were having, created more money than they ever had before, like on a month-by-month basis, but also like raising money. Like at the moment, they're on this dream. She's actually could buy an entire new foundation with the money they've raised so far for the forest. And we're looking at now, we just created a new goal, haven't we, Josie? To, by the end of the year, end of 2019, to have got all of the money for the forest. And there's work to be done, right? There's beautiful work to be done to make that happen. So it's a beautiful example of the great use of something impossible and then doing the work on a day-by-day basis towards that impossible goal. And believe me, it was so impossible when we first met, wasn't it, Josie? It was insanely impossible. And yet, once you connected to it, and once you started to speak to people about it too, it became real. It became a part of your identity. It became a part of the foundation's identity. And it's revolutionized the way the foundation runs. If you look at it now, it's one of the most professional charities in the world that actually create incredible things for people. Experiences and all kinds of things. Check them out, the Vervet Forest. Actually, Josie, post a link here actually of where you want people to look. Get them to check out what you do because it's very, very cool. You know, looking after the Vervet monkeys in South Africa. It's beautiful. But a great example, set an insane distant dream. That's right, it wasn't once a distant dream. That's been getting closer and closer all the time. We've created some new challenges, haven't we, Josie? That's going to accelerate the process very, very quickly. So that's what you get to do. When you create something that's inspiring, it's like the problem that people often have is the attachment to a specific, like when is it going to happen? How specifically is it going to happen? And then because of that, you can feel the distance, the gap between where you are and where it is, and it's the gap that causes the problem. People feel a gap. The right dream, though, there is no gap. Because you don't need it to happen in a specific way, there is no gap anymore. You are it. So your dream becomes you, and you're walking through the world as that person. And it's very cool. Cool. Josie's posted that link. Check out what she's done, what she's doing. It's beautiful. And so I did a similar thing for myself. Like I just checked actually, it was 2013, so Christmas 2013, when I was beginning this really, I was like, a while after I'd made the decision to change my life and to never fail people again. I'd been working hard for a few months. I had a great coach and great coaches and teachers already, and I was getting some more. And I decided, because I'd heard an idea from a very famous coach at the time, that when he was starting out, he made a decision to become world class. And he wasn't at the time, but he made a decision to. and how it affected his life. So I loved that idea. And I'm like, I'm going to become world class at coaching. I made that decision back then. And I recorded a video about it actually, which is somewhere on YouTube. I don't know where it is at the moment, but it's somewhere. And it was a very scary thing because I remember I was at my job at the time. I'd been in for like 15 years, I think, by that point. And I was 15 years, 14, 16 years at that point. And I was on my lunch break and they could see me there sort of in my, very tight and very stiff in my early video days, sharing this thing about becoming world class. And for me though, it had such a deep meaning for me because it's hard to articulate what that was. But essentially, I wanted to be world class in every area of my life, not just in coaching actually, as a human being. And so what that meant was every day, or almost every day, I had to bring a different way of being to my life. I had to bring it into my work. I had to bring it into my home life, my relationships. You know, I had to totally reshape who I was being every single day and to continue to do better. Fascinatingly, what happened for me is just a few weeks after that, I started working with people in different countries actually, which was very, very cool. So that world-class part, or at least the world part, was coming in very quickly. And even like people who were like elite athletes, like gold medal winners and stuff, I started to work with. It was like, it's quite amazing really how quickly it transformed once I'd made that commitment, because it meant that everything changed. So it meant that I was reading and training a lot harder. It meant that what I was writing and producing was of increasing better quality. It meant that I was challenging myself more in my own life and with my clients. Or the people who weren't clients, they had many clients back then, but the people I was coaching who weren't clients, I had to bring so much more to all of that. So it required so much work, and it required so much of me, but it didn't feel like work in a negative way. You know, it felt like an amazing thing. Yes, David mentions about Josie. She heard a lot about her work, very inspiring. Yes, David, she's very, very cool. And at the beginning of something too, which is beautiful. And David Bailey as well. David Bailey right there, right? He quit his job just a few weeks ago, actually. Quit his life in England, you know, said goodbye to friends, to family, to everything, to move to Thailand with no actual real plan, except a rough idea, to go and move to Thailand with his beautiful wife and create a credible life out there with her, which is what his dream. He's doing that right now. You know, a beautiful moment when he made the decision too. Getting the message from you, David, I remember that, of like when you'd made that decision, finally, it's like, yes, the work you've been doing building up to that position. Now you get to throw yourself into it. And already, like in his first week of being there, right, or first couple of weeks of being there, he gets his first pay gig working with this charity at this like very expensive resort, helping women who've experienced cancer. That's what he got to do because he embodied it. He embodied his dream, and he's now living through that dream. And you know, it barely begun to create as well. But there's that thing of just the right dream for you is something you walk through with. So it's not about, as coming back to the title, it's not just you can do anything, which is like meaningless and incorrect. It's you can try anything, and there'll be certain limitations along the way, which you learn to navigate and adapt and move around. And the thing is, and this is important to remember, your dreams are fantasies. They're not real. You don't know if you're going to love your dream. What you know is, oh, that sounds cool. And when I think about it, it feels cool. I'm going to try. That's really it. So all this attachment to it, you know, is detrimental and gets in the way. Whereas when you remove the attachment to how it happens or the specifics of it, but you just live through this inspired way, you get to create things that seem miraculous. Your life becomes this extraordinary unfolding experience on a day-to-day basis. It's a very different experience of life, but it's available to you right now if you're willing to take the risk and you're willing to risk going for your dreams. It's not about the dream itself either and whether that will happen. It's also about, pause the dramatic effect, and for a sip of water, it's also about what people think of you. You know, it's about how you're perceived. Because once you share these dreams with people, then you're risking rejection, you're risking criticism, you're risking looking stupid if it fails, and all the other stuff around it. So there's the dream itself, which can be scary if you don't even think you can do it. But then there's the public failure that comes as part of that can get in the way. But if you can adapt through that, and you can be willing to embrace the exciting potential for your life, incredible things happen. And that's how to utilize it much better. So not just you can do anything, which is like a meaningless and trite, but it's like you can do extraordinary things. You've no idea what your limitations are. Set inspiring, impossible goals, seek them out, work hard to get them, and you get to find out what happens. It's an extraordinary experience of life that not enough people get to lead. And that's why I do this, and that's why I'm talking about becoming superhuman, because you get to be so much more than you are. You get to create way more than you are. Cool. Okay. So, summarize. You can't do anything you want or be anything you want. That's not the case, but you can be way more than you know is possible. And your perceived limitations are just going to get in the way of that. Set yourself impossible goals, ones that stretch you far beyond what you think you can achieve. Because even whether you get there or not, who you become and the life you lead, the connections you make transform by going for those things. Then, of course, it's about not having attachment to the goal. So it doesn't have to be a specific way, not in a specific time frame, or you can in a specific time frame actually, but not a specific way. And be willing, of course, to fail. It's quite important. Be willing, is it worth it enough to go for it and to fail? Because if you do, you still become more anyway. Your life still unfolds. The connections you make going for your goals, even if they fail, they stay with you. And you get to deepen them and create an extraordinary life of beautiful connections and beautiful experiences around you. And maybe you need to readjust your goal later. Who cares? It's a different experience of life you get to lead. Then, of course, get the right support. So it could be a life coach like me, or it could be friendships is important actually, the right people. So don't share your dream with someone who is likely to put their fears onto you or judge you or criticize you too early, because it can be fragile at that point. Share it with the right people who you know are going to receive it well, and all they're going to say is, how can I help, or good on you, go for it. That's all you need in the early stage. You don't need to be rescued. You don't need someone to protect you from your failures. What you need is just simple support. A beautiful friend of mine, Arissa Kelly, she's a foot archer, right? The world's first real professional foot archer who travels the world on her hands, firing a bow and arrow with her feet at target and getting paid to travel the world to do that. Almost at every continent she's been in the past 3 years, right? She's created an extraordinary career. Perfect example of great support, right? Phones up her mum when she was I think she was 18. She's going to go to university, supposed to go to university. Phones up her mum, goes, Mum, I want to join the circus. Mum's reaction, okay, love, you do whatever you want, as long as it makes you happy. That was something like that was her response. First initial gut reaction, triggered response was, okay, go for it, essentially. So that's the first thing she heard. There was no quelling of it. There was no holding her back. And 5 years later, she's created a very unique career that no one else in the world has ever had. People have now created a whole school, or in the US actually, around the skill that she's developed. And she's actually been there and taught classes and stuff. She created it from nothing. And part of the reason she's been able to do that is because of the incredible correct support she had at the right time. So that's really important. And also the structures as well, support structures in your life. Do you have space in your life to create the thing you want? Are you creating regular space? This is one that I often share with people who want dates, want to create a relationship with someone, and they say they're too busy to date. So this is the thing: they're too busy to date, so they're on Tinder or one of these apps, right? So then they can fit in a date within their very tight schedule. Okay, so you're too busy to go and meet people normally, and yet you think that by having these text message interactions, you're likely to, from a random text message interaction on some dating app where people are there for a range of different reasons and tend to lie about who they are anyway to a lot of degree, you think that is likely to lead to someone you're going to marry. You're putting that as your best chance of getting married. And I'm like, seriously, the most unlikely possibility of meeting someone new is you're going to marry them, right? It's the most unlikely of all, unless you've got no real discernment, of course, then maybe you will. And those few people who married quite a few times perhaps weren't very discerning. However, if you want to create a great relationship, but you think you're too busy to go out and meet people, I'd recommend re-evaluating your life in that way. Rather than having the least potential way of meeting someone, and by the way, just because people do it, and it happens occasionally, doesn't make it a good way to do this, by the way. The best way is just to meet someone in person. And to do that, create space in your calendar. If it's truly important to you, create space in your calendar so you can go out and meet cool people, go to great events, meet people with similar interests, and just do cool things. Because the other thing is, if you're meeting people that don't even live near you, you're again putting hard work into something that could happen very naturally if you were just to meet more people that are cool, right? So create the structures in your life, that the friends, the people, the mentors and support you have, the structures in your life, have those there. Then, of course, then you can walk through this world living an extraordinary life, creating incredible things, and life just gets better in that way. It's a very exciting way to live. I strongly recommend it. Do something with that. So, thank you very much for being here. Now, if you want to create an extraordinary experience of life, you want to become the superhuman version of yourself, becoming superhuman next year, I've got a range of experiences actually to help you become superhuman too, which means, by the way, handle anything. So no matter how tragic, no matter how painful, you can handle it. You know, there's nothing in life you won't be able to handle by going through the trainings that I'm running next year. That's what it's for. Create anything. But what I'm talking about here, well, there's nothing you can't create if you choose to. And when I say nothing, not in the way that there's just anything possible, but if you desire it enough, you can go for this. You can feel just like anything is possible for you. And if you hit limitations, it doesn't matter. You find a way to expand those limitations, go around them. Simplification of creating the extraordinary is also what we'll be doing. And then it's choosing to be powerful as well. You know, in any moment, any interaction, you get to choose to be powerful. So you can say what is meaningful to you. You get to do what is right for you, regardless of how it's perceived around you. In any moment, you get to choose to be powerful. And that's what the essence of becoming superhuman is, a superhuman version of yourself, psychologically, emotionally, and as a result also, and some of the work we'll be doing physically too, depending on which experience you come to. So if you want that for yourself, and this is the culmination of everything in my life, you know, this isn't something I've just made up, you know, that I'm just thinking, that sounds cool. This is the evolution of everything in my life. You know, what I see as what was wrong in my life, you know, when I was, during the 6 months actually, after my father died, when I was in that black cloud, I was talking to my coach the other day about it. He's like, you need to explain more about that. And what it was, I was assessing myself, assessing my interactions with my father. You know, the times when I was with him, and I'd just come back from work, I was with him, you know, looking after him physically and giving his medications and stuff like that. But I was still at work, or I was wanting to be somewhere else, like I had a girlfriend at the time. It wasn't a healthy relationship, but there was the pull and stress of that. And then, so there was stress there, and I was going to my grandma's a couple of times a week. So when I was with my father, I was elsewhere all the time. And I'm like, well, that's not okay. You know, in the last few months of his life, I didn't get to be with him enough. And that's unacceptable. You know, and I made good excuses like, it's because I'm busy, because I'm stressed. But that's my life and his life that I was playing with. I just didn't realise, I wasn't able to have the presence to realise it. And so it's, you know, assessing that, I'm like, that is unacceptable. And so realising and assessing the different parts of my life, the reason why I was in an unhealthy relationship was because of the way I was living my life too. I didn't really know what was possible. I wasn't willing to have the difficult conversations actually and be truly honest with her early enough, which meant I got interlocked into something I shouldn't have been in. You know, so I assessed deeply all the different bad decisions I was making continuously on a daily basis, and that decision became, I cannot do that again. I need to learn how to do better, how to have those difficult conversations, how to be powerful. And I didn't articulate it in that way, but the journey over the past 5.5 years has been that. And then working with so many people, realising, why is it you're not changing enough? Why are you limiting yourself? You know, it's like, there's so much more that's possible for you. And so I'm like, well, that's how it's evolved into this. It's like, okay, this is the thing. Becoming superhuman is it. Because if you stake a claim in the ground and you say, I want to become the superhuman version of myself, you know there's work to be done. You know it'll be hard, but you know also it'll be exciting. You know nothing in your life will ever be the same again. And you know you can create the relationships, the deeper friendships, you can have adventures. Your life becomes an extraordinary experience that few people get to have. Although with the work I'm doing, I want more and more people to have that. But you know all that. So that's why it's come to this. It's like, I want people who go, yes, I want to be superhuman, I want to do the work, and I want to have an amazing experience of life too. If that is you, send me a message. Tell me I want to become superhuman, and let's speak about it. And let's find out how that can happen for you. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining me today on this episode, even now on the replay. Please keep commenting, comment along, send me any questions that you have, either here or privately as well. Some of you have been messaging me privately, and I appreciate that too. It's important that you get this, and this actually makes a difference to your life. That's why I do these things. So thank you for being here and becoming superhuman. Josie, thank you for sharing. It was very, very cool. Perfect that you joined here, able to be a perfect living example of what I'm talking about. David, you too, man. Thank you for being here too. And for anyone watching this, thank you. And I look forward to seeing you again on the next edition of Becoming Superhuman.